Welcome back everyone. Hi, if you're new, my name is Tori and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys all of my spoiler-free thoughts on The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So of course I'm going to talk about the plot, the characters, but what I really want to do, I want to go into the timeline and I really want to talk about V.E. Schwab's writing style. That is just, we have a lot to get into about that. But yeah, as I mentioned, 100% spoiler free. I'm just going to be touching on kind of the surface level details of the actual plot, but then go into some a little deeper things along the way. If that sounds interesting, you can safely watch the video from beginning to end and be fine and not have anything spoiled for you throughout the story. So yeah, all that being said, let's get into it. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is V.E. Schwab's latest fantasy release. It just came out like a month ago at this point. And in this, we're following our main character, Adeline, or Addie LaRue, who was born in a really small village in France. And she, you know, it's the kind of place where people just really live out the paths that are expected of them. People are born, they grow up, they fall in love, they get married, have kids, they die. And that's pretty much the standard path that people are kind of stuck on in this village. Everybody knows each other. For Addie, it just feels very claustrophobic. It's almost kind of frightening to her because she's like, this can't be all there is to life. I want to see things. I want to experience more. I want to live, I want to live beyond this essentially. And she's just feeling really constrained by the environment that she lives in. She's feeling really constrained by time. And so we're kind of following Addie through all of that, and we get to her wedding day and she just bolts from the wedding. She's just like, this cannot be all there is. I want more. I need more from life. So she flees into the forest, and it's there that she ends up conjuring this darkness, this devil, whatever you want to call him, named Luke. And Addie ends up making a bargain with Luke to essentially not be held by time anymore, to live forever. But that bargain does come with the caveat that Addie, in living forever, will not be able to be remembered by the people she comes in contact with for the rest of her, for the rest of eternity, essentially. So the way that plays out is so fascinating. I was thinking about the logistics of how that would actually work, but the way, how V.E. Schwab goes about describing that, and actually the interactions that Addie has with people, and then 1 second later they don't know who she is. It's so interesting, and it's so heartbreaking at the same time. So, Addie, she'll be having a conversation with somebody in a doorway, and say they close the door in her face. They open the door again and have no idea who she is, or they could leave the room that she's in and then come back and not know who she is. They could go to sleep and wake up the next day and not know and remember who she is. So already within the foundation of the plot of the story, V.E. Schwab has already created this emotional attachment between Addie and the reader, and I absolutely love that. I was almost in tears within the first 50 pages. I think I almost cried like twice. I was texting one of my best friends and I was like texting her like, I'm a mess right now. This book is ruining my life. Just already, just the thought of not being able to be remembered by people and not being able to leave your mark on the world. That's scary. That's heartbreaking. And we really are, we're close to Addie as she's going through all of that. And even beyond, people not remembering who she is, Addie herself is not really able to leave any trace of herself in the world. She's not able, she doesn't come up in pictures. She's not able to say her name, any part of it. She's not able to write her name. When you sit and think about it for too long, it actually gets really heartbreaking. And there were some sections of this book that just really pulled at my emotions the way no other book I've read this year has been able to do. So I say all that to say, I don't think it's too much of a surprise to put together at this point that I absolutely adored everything about this book from beginning to end. This was incredible. I highly recommend everybody go check this out. But in the story, we do have two different timelines. We are getting Addie, everything kind of started for her in the 1700s in France, but we're following Addie through through that time period, but we're also kind of following her through the centuries. We're getting the story in early 18th century France, but we're also getting the story in our somewhat present day of 2014. And so Addie has seen things come into existence. She's seen film develop and art and books, and she's traveled and she's seen war. I don't know. It's something about this story. It's something about this character that there's just such a strong emotional bond while you're reading the story that it's really hard to put into words unless you have actually read it yourself. It's so good. And every year on the anniversary of when Addie made the bargain with Luke, he actually comes back to visit her. So, you know, throughout the story, when Luke does make his appearances, and I actually don't think he wasn't in the book as much as I would have liked him to be. I actually really enjoyed Luke's character, but every time he's in the story and every time he has these interactions with Addie, they almost have this kind of toxic power dynamic that they go throughout the course of the story, because really Addie, she's living through these centuries, but really all she has to do is tell Luke, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I can surrender to you, essentially. But throughout the centuries, Addie, she's not going to give Luke the satisfaction of being right, of finally taking her life away. So they have this really fascinating power dynamic that they go throughout the entire story. That's just, it's a little frightening, but it's actually really good when you experience it. And I'm forgetting kind of one of the major details of the story. I cannot believe I just like blanked on this. Addie's living through these years and these centuries without really being remembered, but kind of everything changes one day when she walks into this bookshop and she tries to steal one of the books from the shelves. And normally if Addie steals something and she gets far enough out of sight, people forget what they're doing and who they were chasing, that sort of thing. But Addie tries to steal this book from a bookshop, and she's leaving the bookshop, and you know, the bookseller is calling after her saying, you have to put this back, you can't just walk out the shop. And Addie's walking a bit faster, just thinking, oh, he'll forget about me in a minute or so. And this man, Henry, actually catches up to her, and he's able to say her name, he's able to remember who she is. So that just adds an even deeper layer to the story of, well, now they have this connection, and it's so, oh, this story is so great. It is so great. So the story itself, the characters, they're all fantastic. A+. But my favorite part of this entire novel is V.E. Schwab's writing style. It is so, actually, it's kind of a plus and a minus, and I'll get into that in a second. But I absolutely fell in love with Schwab's writing in this novel. My only experience with V.E. Schwab came from Vicious, which I read several years ago now at this point. And I know she has a lot of other books. She has the Darker Shade of Magic series, but I actually have not read those. So it's been a pretty sizable gap between my experience with V.E. Schwab's writing. So for me to go from something like Vicious to something like Addie LaRue, it's just, she's always been a really competent and really great storyteller, but there's just something about that gap between the two where I can really see her storytelling and the confidence in her storytelling has just absolutely soared in this book. I will say though, there are a lot of moments where I think the prose gets in the way of the story that's trying to be told, because there are some times where you just don't want the flowery paragraph. You just want to get to the point. You want to see what's happening with Addie or with the bookseller Henry, or get through the interactions with Luke. So I will say there are moments where V.E. Schwab's writing kind of just overshadows a lot of the plot elements that are happening, but she just creates this just emotional and heavy and dense kind of narrative style throughout the story, so that by the time you finish it, like, yes, you're kind of realizing it in the moment as you're reading through the book, but it's actually when you close the book and let the story kind of wash over you that you just feel exhausted. You feel heavy. So the fact that V.E. Schwab is able to have that effect once the story is finished, I loved it so much. I really, really loved this book. This was absolutely amazing. It's definitely the best option that Book of the Month has ever offered me in the year and a half that I've been a Book of the Month subscriber. But oh man, this is incredible. This is truly incredible. I love the back of it. It says, "A life no one will remember, a story you will never forget." It's perfect. So those are all of my thoughts about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This sounds so cliche, so generic, but I truly did love this novel from after reading the first chapter. It's just that kind of story that I think will stay with you. It sticks in your mind long after you're done reading it, and I highly recommend you check it out. So that is it for me, you guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments, spoiler free of course, so no one else will be spoiled down below, if you have read this book, what you thought about it, or if you plan on picking it up. It's definitely, I'm not trying to spoil my like top 10 books of 2020. I feel like I've already kind of done it though, but this will definitely be in the top 10 books that I have read in 2020, and I'm actually very excited for that video. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.